Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We're in my shop. Mitch behind the cameras. Welcome. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to talk about how I got here, how the channel started, how the channel operates, and how we made a small fortune. My life has not been a straight line. It's convoluted. It weaves, and I'm going to pick spots that I'm going to talk about. 1967, I was 12 years old, and the mini bike craze hit. It hit hard. Lots of kids in my neighborhood anyway had a mini bike. I wanted one really bad. A Bonanza mini bike was $149 that I did not have. I knew my father was not going to buy me one. So I decided that I would make one. And so over the course of the next, I think it was almost a year, I did make one. I did have some help, but I was 12 years old. That's when it started. I've been making things out of metal for 57 years. In 1986, after working for Rocky Mountain for a couple years as their frame builder, I started Brodie Bikes. It was in a house that I owned with my sister at the time. It was off of Fraser Street, East Vancouver. I extended the house and the workshop was under the sun deck, and that's where Brodie Bikes had its origins. I was making frames that had sloping top tubes, and that was unusual at the time because most bikes had horizontal top tubes. And there was some people out there like the Cove Bike Shop who was really known for being the hardcore riders of that era, and they would say things like, how do you carry it? It looks like a girl's bike. I had a customer back then who bought a frame. It was Brent Martin. We became friends, and he wanted to go racing. So I sold him a frame, and he started racing, and he started winning. That was 1986. In August of 1986, there was the Canadian Championships at Mount Seymour, close to the Deep Cove Bike Shop. And so Brent, as you see in the photo, he had an injured wrist and he wasn't very confident about his chances in that race. But he won. All the people who talked about a girl's bike and that, they all had to shut their mouths, and that's how the bikes got launched. So that was Brent Martin, and he comes back into the story later. In 2001, after being in the bicycle business for 15 years, I sold the last half of my name. Didn't sell the company really, but I sold my name. That was the only thing that seemed to have some value. I sold the first half in 1997, so there was a gap of 4 years. In 2001, I was also road racing my Aramaki, and because the bicycle business had gone down for hand-built frames, I was working on antique motorcycles, and I thought that my life was kind of going in a straight line. In 2005, I started the Excelsior project, and I made these bikes, and there's none in existence that we know of. I made 6, I sold 4, I have one for sale now. In 2009, I was working in my shop on these bikes, and I thought about my frame jigs upstairs in the office. I hadn't used these jigs for 5 years, and so I thought, if I sold them, I could probably get $8,000, and I could buy myself a new trials bike. So, sort of on a whim, I took some photos, put an ad on Craigslist, and to my surprise, in 12 hours, I had an email from Sweden and from Switzerland. So Craigslist is not local. If you think it is, it's not. Anyway, the jigs didn't sell over there, but a few weeks later, they did sell locally, and the person who bought the jigs was Brent Martin, the same man, not so young anymore, but he won the '86 championship on a Brodie and helped to launch it. So Brent is not a frame builder. He was actually, and was for quite a number of years, in the eyeglass business. But he said to me, you should teach frame building. And I thought, frame building? That was not on my radar at all. I was working on antique motorcycles. But anyway, I decided, okay, well, maybe I should think about that. So long story short, I ended up teaching frame building at the University of the Fraser Valley, in the Fraser Valley. And the first class was in September of 2010. So I taught, and I liked that a lot. And so in 2019, I was teaching class, and I had a student there, and his name was Mitch. It's the same Mitch that's behind the camera now. And so he made a frame, and at the time, I was also making a frame. And so I found out that we actually lived pretty close, like 5 minutes away. And so I suggested, why don't we go for a ride? And that's what happened. He got his bike finished. A friend of mine, Eve, he happened to phone, I think, the evening before we went on the ride, and he basically invited himself. And so the three of us would go every Friday, rain or shine, didn't matter, hot, cold, we would go out there, and we became known as the Three Amigos. And on these rides, Mitch was youngest, he was the fastest, he was always ahead, and I'd come down the trail, and there was Mitch. He's got his phone out, and he's making a video. And then after the ride, he would send us these short clips. And so that was pretty cool. I knew that he liked to film. And out at the school, there was some changes happening. My boss, who I'd had since all those years, 9 years, he was leaving. He turned 65. His name was Rolf, and him and I got along well. And I got a new boss. I got his boss, and his name was David, and I didn't like David, and other people didn't like David. And in the fall of 2019, we had a meeting. It was me and David and an assistant. And he had paper, and he didn't have a calculator, but he was talking numbers, and he was writing and doing math in his head and putting numbers down, and he was telling me that we weren't making any money in the course and that we needed to raise the price. I also told him that I would like to teach frame building for 5 more years, and he says, fine. So he does these numbers, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? And then he tells me that, okay, we have to raise the price from $3,000 for a 2-week course to $5,000. That's a 66% increase. And I said, really? I said, that's a lot of money, because often if a student takes the course, they have to fly in from another country. That was quite common. Rent a hotel room, maybe rent a car, pay for meals. It really adds up. And so to put the course from 3 to 5, that was a lot. And I said, really? Do you think that's going to work? And so he says, as if it solves everything, well, you're Paul Brodie. And I just thought, holy crap. Anyway, that was in the fall. And so we were still riding. And then watching on the website for the university how many people have signed up, and nobody signs up. And now it's March, and COVID hit. And of course, so that was basically the end of Frame Building 101. At this time, after it ended, someone said to me, you should do YouTube. And it was kind of in the back of my mind, but I couldn't think of who had said that. So I was talking with Mitch, and I said, Mitch, someone said that I should do YouTube. And he says, that was me. It was like, don't know how I didn't think of Mitch there. Anyway, so that's how it started. So April 4th in 2020, we did our first video. I had no microphone. There was no lights. Mitch basically took out his iPhone and followed me around the shop while I did things. And that's how it all started. I knew that I never wanted to film myself. I see those videos on YouTube and the head's half cut off or whatever. So I knew I always wanted someone who would be a filmmaker. That's Mitch. And right from the start, we did a 50-50 split. I knew that maybe I could ask for a bit more at first, but that was the best for long term. And how it works here is that usually on a Tuesday morning, doesn't have to be, Mitch shows up at 9:30 and it's basically, what are we doing? It's my responsibility to create something, whatever it is. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not so easy. So that is my role. So what I do, I got to figure out a subject. Maybe I make a drawing. I buy metal. I buy fasteners. I organize my shop. I get ready. That takes a certain amount of energy. And then basically we get paid from YouTube. We get 3 different incomes. We get income from the ads. When you buy merchandise, we get a small cut. And when you buy us coffee, we get income from that too. I did my taxes last month. It's that time of year. So I know exactly how much we made for last year. And basically, I got 12 grand and Mitch got 12 grand. That is what we made off those 3 sources of revenue. And so that's $1,000 a month, and 4 episodes, that's $250 for each episode. Now, if we lived in a third world country, that would be a small fortune, but we live up here in North America, in Canada, and that money goes pretty quick because out of that $250, I have to pay shop expenses and buy metal, fasteners, whatever is needed for the video, and so there's not a whole lot left over. So if you buy us coffee, that helps a lot, maybe even more than you knew. So that's how you can help. Mitch and I like coffees. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.